Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the CryptoNews podcast. We're buzzing as always, and today we have Kadan Stadelmann back on the show for round two. The blockchain developer, operations security expert, and chief technology officer of Komodo, a leader in blockchain interoperability and atomic swap technology. Its flagship tech and user application is the AtomicDEX, a mobile and web-compatible non-custodial multi-coin wallet and atomic swap-powered decentralized exchange rolled into one single decentralized application. Kadan strongly identifies with Komodo's open source vision and ideology, and his dedication to the Komodo project is founded on an unwavering desire to make the world a better place. In addition to cryptography, blockchain tech, and development, Kadan is interested in literature, mathematics, astrophysics, and traveling. Without further ado, I'm very pleased to welcome back to the CryptoNews podcast, Kadan Stadelmann. Mate, welcome back to the show.
Hey, Matt. Hey, man. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thanks for having me again. Pleasure.
Hey, very pumped to have you on. The last time you came on the show, that was close to, I want to say 8-9 months ago, and you absolutely brought the noise. First time I ever heard of what an AtomicDEX was. I know you and the team have built quite a bit since then. And the thing that excites me the most is you were actually one of the people who really got me onto the Cosmos ecosystem. Atom is probably one of the trendiest blockchains out there right now. And I think that's a good place to start. Everywhere you go on Twitter, you have all the gurus, the self-proclaimed gurus, the technical analysis dudes. You got everyone being like, of all the blockchains that have a chance of popping off, it's Cosmos and its ticker, Atom. Can you go into why Cosmos is quietly becoming such a major player in the DeFi space?
Sure, absolutely. So I'll answer like this question more like from my perspective, right? Like I'm gonna mostly speak in my voice, and the thing with like Atom with Cosmos is, and that's something like I have like heavily identified with when I like first got into it, was the vision, right? Like the key ideological aspect of the project, right? Like, so they've similar like to Komodo, basically what we've done, like what we've like kind of like preached 7-8 years ago was like this multi-chain, like architecture, and that like the future is multi-chain, right? It's not going to be like one specific chain, one specific protocol. It's going to be like many. And what's more like important is like kind of we got to somehow like interconnect all these different chains and protocols. And that kind of really like got my attention. It kind of aligned fully like what we at Komodo ideologically have seen and kind of like felt is like the key goal and target like of the kind of growing like blockchain ecosystems back then. And today, if you look like a Cosmos, I mean, it's a very, very fast growing like ecosystem. There's like multiple key reasons technologically, but then also kind of like socially, right, from a community perspective, as to why I believe that Cosmos is really like great and one of like the leading projects out there, right? I mean, it's all about the community. It's always been all about the community. And here you kind of see that they have like a highly technical community started like building, right? Like what we today like kind of like identify and see as like this Cosmos ecosystem. And it was also one of the key reasons why we've kind of like adopted that technology, the IBC layer, like the Cosmos technology. We highly identify with it. And I personally had like a specific case, a specific scenario that I went through, and that kind of kind of set in stone that we're gonna like integrate with Cosmos, and that's what we like eventually did.
Was it a no-brainer from the get-go? Like, when did you start really paying attention to this? Because I know you've had this decentralized, multi-chain, interoperable future vision for a hot minute. Do you remember the specific point in time where you were like, we're going all in on this?
Must have been around 2017, 2018, around like that time frame when I first like looked into the code bases of it. And I'd have like to lie, but I think around 2018, 2019, when myself and a few like teammates, we started playing with the Cosmos SDK again, look deeper into like the tandem code bases. When we realized the modular like stack, it kind of like represented that you kind of like have your chain, but then it gives like this crazy kind of configuration options and possibilities, right? That with other blockchain protocols, you kind of like have like to develop everything again, right? Like set up a new smart contract, etc., etc. With Cosmos, it was really like this kind of like hot plug and play experience, and
Right.
that was really like the moment, like for me, from really like a dev perspective, looking at it, I really always try to distinguish between market and tech. And I mean, in 2008, I mean, I'm an ICO, you know, like a contributor, like investor. I've like, you know, got into like Cosmos like super early. Then with the airdrop mania over the last, what was it, like 18 months or so. I mean, that's like another like super positive aspect of Cosmos, of Atom as such. It almost feels like you invested into an incubator like platform, and like whatever's launching on top of it is gonna make you like a co-owner of that new like project or new product. And it's really been amazing over the last like 12, 18 months. What was it, right? Like, I mean, I'm sure you've like experienced the same, right? Like it was one airdrop after the other. It's not just like, you know, sorry my wording, you know, shit coins and tokens like airdrop, but no, it's actually like projects that actually build something like essential for the ecosystem. That's what I really love about Cosmos and Atom, right? First of all, of course, the things I've just mentioned itself has a great technological layer, right? No question, it's like amazing. But then looking like further, like beyond Atom and like Cosmos itself, you start realizing what kind of like top tier like projects are building on top of it. And yeah, that's again brings me back like to this like incubator, you know, experience that we're all here like kind of facing.
So present day, Atom, if I head on over to CoinMarketCap and CoinGecko, Atom, which is Cosmos, is ranked 22 out of the whatever 15, 20,000 coins that we have. It's ranked 22, and on the present day of recording, the price is $12.29 US per Atom. Where do you think that'll be at the end of the year? A couple years down the road, does this have a chance to crack the top 5? Will this ever be more prominent than a Binance? Obviously, it's going to be very tough to crack Bitcoin and ETH, and obviously the stable coins, but as such a special ecosystem, does this have a chance?
So obviously it's like no financial advice, right? And to everyone listening right now, I mean, never invest like more than you're willing like to lose eventually, man. And essentially that's like the golden rule of crypto. But really looking at it, you know, and giving a kind of like a small prediction to where I see this heading from a market perspective, and really MFA, right? No financial advice. I definitely think like, you know, with its deflationary mechanisms and like the plans and the goals and where this is like heading, I think like that Cosmos definitely has a huge potential. I think it's kind of like the beginning, to be honest with you. I think it's great, like the asset itself, right? It's like capped, right? There's like hard limits in the code bases, etc., etc. It also kind of like feels they're not just like throwing tokens out of thin air, but there's actual like protocol like operations taking place. You know, there's multiple factors really that I'm looking at like Cosmos from a kind of like economic, you know, socioeconomic perspective, financial perspective. I think the potential is as high as its technological potential, right? And that's like immense. That's like huge. That's one of the rare blockchain protocols where I say there's quality, right, happening right there. It's not just like some, you know, blah, blah crap and like some vaporware, but it's actually like solid tech. And if we take that technological factor and kind of try to map that over to the market value, to the you know, like economic factor of like Cosmos, I mean, I personally know, no financial advice, but I say it should have already been at like top 10 at least. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, it's obvious, and it's a very fast growing ecosystem. I've been like at blockchain events like from other top players in the space, right? Speaking like top 5, top 10 blockchain protocols and projects that even run their own centralized exchanges, etc., etc. I'm not going to like call any of these out. And there's like projects who've been like in talk with us, and they said, man, we're actually looking to get out of this because not happy like from a tech factor, etc. perspective. And then with Cosmos, you see that you're kind of not forced into a specific technological stack, right? When it comes to writing smart contracts, for example. If you look at Cosmos, we have EVM OS, right? People familiar with the EVM stack can build on top of it. But then we also have like, you know, Cosm Wasm. So if you want to like build on a really solid like tech stack, like Rust, you can do so. Like this kind of like flexibility from like a platform, a framework perspective, I mean, that highlights like the power of like the Cosmos SDK. And I predict that a lot of like other big players in the space who already built, let's say on ERC or on a BP standard or so, they not just might, but I'm certain that there's going to be many migrations over to Cosmos. What we miss right now is, for example, an easy migration tool. You have a ERC project, take the smart contract address or pub key of this project, type it into a nice like web form, and it migrates it straight into like a Cosmos chain. These kind of like things. And that's gonna come, right? But again, just like to answer the question, because I'm already like shifting off a bit, like off topic, sorry for that, is I definitely like see this one climbing up higher, and it might flip the one or other protocol many wouldn't have expected.
You think it might flip ETH?
Well, I haven't like called the name out, but with ETH, let me just like give you my perspective, is that I believe that ETH honestly kind of turned almost into a blockchain standard without a formal standardization process. If I look into like other big players, companies, players that haven't engaged much with blockchain tech, if they consider like building something on blockchain stack or do something or hire someone with that specific knowledge, in 90% of the cases, it's going to be like EVM. Yeah, it's going to be ETH. It's going to be like Solidity, right? That's just reality. So in that specific regard, I'm not sure if it's going to have the economic power to quickly flip it, because ETH as such has a much higher economic value, right? Packed into the protocol, into the projects, like into like the liquidity pools of the various like tools and DeFi stacks. So I mean, that's a tough one, right? I don't say it's like impossible, and the potential is definitely there, right? 100%. But I think it needs like another like step, 1, 2 like bigger milestones, towards that goal. Because ETH, again, like it's almost like a political question. You know what I mean? Like, so.
No, it's very true. It's very true. So let's summarize Atom very quickly here for the non-technical people, and heck, I'll throw myself in that bucket. The thing that separates Cosmos from the other blockchains and cryptocurrencies is its ability to be as interoperable as can be, and its ability to become a major player in the DeFi space, and its ability to allow other blockchains to bridge over to whatever one they want via Cosmos. Would that be a little summation?
Yeah, kind of. I mean, that's like really one good, like, kind of description also like from the tech factor. One thing I think which like caught my attention also like for Cosmos, while you're mentioning this again, is like that, I'm able to build like an independent chain on top of Cosmos. And for my specific chain operations, you could like pay the fees in my specific chain token. It's something that's not possible with ETH.
Gotcha.
If you look at ETH, man, you're trapped into like a taxative system that kind of keeps growing, right? In terms of expenses exponentially, not just like proportionally, it's actually exponentially in regards like to the actual utilization. So the more players, so the better the protocol becomes, the more utility it has and more usage, the more expensive it gets. And that should be the case. While with Cosmos, it's like kind of like the opposite. Bandwidth grows within the network. We have like more nodes, more players, etc. And I actually don't pay anything in the specific Atom or Cosmos asset. So again, like there's so many positive like aspects around like Cosmos, and I think over the next hours we could probably only talk about like why is it so superior, compared to ETH. But to me, it's kind of, we're comparing like almost apples to what is a really, really good fruit, right? Pineapple. I like pineapple, right? I'm not a big fan of apples, and so it's like a huge like difference between these two things, where Cosmos obviously is like the pineapple to me.
Interesting. That's a very unique point. And the name itself, Cosmos, it's the constellation of blockchains. That's, I believe what the team and its marketing efforts, that's how they refer themselves. That's how they refer to themselves. Cosmos is the constellation of blockchains, sort of like the internet of blockchains, a federation of city-states kind of thing. Is this accurate?
Yeah, kinda. I mean, I might even like call it like the universe of blockchains, right? And because that's what essentially it is, right? Like, I mean, many things have been like super enhanced like with Cosmos compared to other like second or third generation protocols, but this ultimate vision of multi-chain architecture that's natively interoperable with each other, that's a key point. It's a great sales argument. And then there's other additional players in the space, others building additional like interoperability protocols, etc., like us, like Komodo, AtomicDEX, right, that kind of further enhance and extend the Cosmos SDK capability, right? Like, so one specific example here, I was at the Cosmoverse, right, in Medellin just a couple of weeks ago, and a month prior to that, myself and Tony, like our COO, we kind of like were trying to take like just a couple BTC and transfer them into like Cosmos, right, as a strategic investment. And we kind of like we're exploring, okay, which protocol, which SURE are we going to use to execute this? And we already had Cosmos as our roadmap, right? But at that point of time, it wasn't kind of like prioritized. It was goal Q1 next year. And then we realized, oh, damn, like I could not take like 1 point something BTC and just transfer them over into Atom. I would have had to go through some centralized platform, some centralized exchange with KYC, AML, the whole thing, right? Like, so not possible. I mean, there's people right in Latin America, there's people in Africa, in Southeast Asia. They don't even have a ID, right? They don't have a residency paper. They can't prove that they live somewhere, right? People don't even have birth certificates, right? And these centralized portals always ask for these documents, right? So with AtomicDEX, all this stuff's just totally obsolete, right? You just don't need it, right? It's a pure peer-to-peer non-custodial tech stack, and you run it natively on your device, right? So we don't have any insights, no control, etc., right? So long story short, I couldn't transform like this BTC into like Cosmos, and we said, you know what, we're just gonna straight integrate the Cosmos interoperability support and just make sure, right, it's covered prior to like next quarter in coming year. So we said, okay, let's go to the Cosmoverse and let's actually like pitch and let's demo, let's showcase this tech stack. And now you can actually take AtomicDEX and it basically bridges the IBC stack to all the other like blockchain protocols. Bitcoin, Ethereum, Binance, a smart chain, BNB, etc. If you have Atom and you want to exchange it or any other Cosmos asset and you want to exchange it for BTC, for ETH, but a native asset, not some proxy token or some proxy bullshit stuff, just a native BTC, you can now do this like with the AtomicDEX, right? And one of the key reasons as to why we've implemented this. I mean, obviously there's no like comparable tech stack existing, and Cosmos hasn't really targeted this native interop with like UTXO chains. That's basically Bitcoin, Litecoin, and all these BTC based protocols, right? Same with ETH, BNB. They haven't really targeted like the interop out of the Cosmos, right? And that's like what we're basically heavily like focusing on, because we kind of have, that's like our ideology, right? The key vision is not just like, bridge and interop like the different like blockchain protocols, but furthermore like bridge the communities, right? The people in there, developers, etc. And we believe like this approach, by doing it with like a technological bridge, has really like worked out with us in the past with multiple projects. And so we're doing this now with Cosmos as well. Just like to wrap it up a bit.
I love that. Let's keep buzzing on Komodo's AtomicDEX for a second. I get most of it, but I feel like I'm missing a couple of pieces here. You guys are really providing an alternative bridging solution to Cosmos to combat the vulnerabilities of cross-chain bridges. Right now, whenever you try to bridge coin to coin, blockchain to blockchain, it's an absolute shit show. Things get lost all the time. Things get lost in the fluff. It's dangerous. There's tons of hacks. You guys are patching and combating the vulnerabilities in cross-chain bridges.
Exactly. So I'd always like to, kind of explain this specific, kind of scenario as through an example, right? Like if you look at most of the nowadays existing like cross-chain bridges, etc. I mean, one big issue with them is that they're often like smart contract based, on an AMM stack. And what's like bad here is that the actual funds, like the liquidity itself, is often like managed, handled, and routed like in a semi-centralized way. Right, so you kind of have to give permission to either the protocol or like the protocol contract deployer or whatsoever, or the network itself to kind of co-sign or sign transactions. Otherwise, trades just can't happen. You would have like to sit there as a user 24/7, and whenever there's a potential like network operation, you'd have to actually sign a key. So, probably like for the sake of comfort, like less user interaction requirement, they kind of building like these semi-centralized like solutions. And the problem we've faced here repeatedly, I mean, this is happening for the last couple of years, right? There's literally billions, right, in USD value just gone, right? Hacked, rugged, whatever. It's just like gone. And it's always like users like me and you, end users, the average Joe that gets like, really hurt. And these people suffer huge damage. The industry as such suffers a damage. With the AtomicDEX and our approach, is that first of all, this is like a third generation technology. We're like working on this since 2013, 2014, right? Before the DeFi and many terms actually were coined. One example, Binance Academy is stating and referring like to us and our project as like the first project that's executed an automated cross-chain and cross-protocol atomic swap. And that's the key difference here is like our DEX, our DeFi bridge is based on cross-chain atomic swaps. It's not an AMM, it's not semi-centralized contracts. There is like an atomic like transaction taking place in a peer-to-peer fashion between two parties. So let's say me and you, right? We're two interested trading parties. I have BTC, you have Atom. We want to like exchange them for each other. It means this trading operation takes place one-to-one between me and you. There is no like entity between us, right? There's no like centralized or semi-centralized like intermediary or like a middleman or whatsoever involved in this like transaction. Not even like the protocol itself, right? So protocol will actually just like oversee the trade. And by the fact that it's based on an atomic swap, I do have like to stand up to the promise I made within our trade, right? If I promise to give you 1 BTC for an Atom, I have to actually like release these coins to you, as otherwise I wouldn't be able to spend the coins that you send to me. And this means it turns the tech essentially unscammable or unhackable, right? So I just cannot like scam someone as you cannot like scam me, right? There might be different, approaches, attack scenarios, like tricking someone into a trade with a bad price, these kind of things, like additional like attacks. But a real cryptographic attack in terms of, getting hacked or someone suffering loss is not possible with the AtomicDEX. And that's something that applies to all the assets that we support and work with, right? And that's roughly 99% of all coins and tokens from CoinMarketCap are fully supported by the AtomicDEX. And the AtomicDEX, it's not just like a lot of people ask me on what protocol did you build? And I try to say, look, we're not just like one smart contract. We're essentially dozens of smart contracts of different protocols interconnected with each other through a unique independent peer-to-peer network. And that network is AtomicDEX, right? That's why it's not hackable. It's not just a single like smart contract. And it's truly non-custodial. So whatever operation you execute with the AtomicDEX, you as an end user are always the one who's got full control over the assets. I mean, remember, not your keys, not your coins, right?
Not
it's just a logical thing, yeah.
Bingo. Kadan, you're on a roll. We got to take a little break here. And when we get back, we are going to keep buzzing on your analogy, which I saw on Twitter the other day, the metaphor regarding the peer-to-peer architect server change. And we're going to get into that in 1 second. Before we do, we got to give a huge shout out to our sponsor of the show, and that's Prime XBT. The GOAT, Prime XBT, is absolutely incredible as they offer a robust trading system for both beginners and professional traders. It doesn't matter if you're a rookie or a vet, you can easily design and customize your layouts and widgets to best fit your trading style. Prime XBT is also running an exclusive promotion for listeners of the Crypto News podcast. Use the promo code CryptoNews50, that is CryptoNews50, to receive 50%, that is 50% of your deposit credited to your trading account. Again, that is CryptoNews50 to receive 50% of your deposit credited to your trading account. Now back to the show with Kadan. Now, Kadan, the other day on Twitter, you had a Twitter thread, and it was a metaphor that explained the paradigm shift from the client-server architecture to peer-to-peer, and that is pretty much the same thing as the change from slave-based Rome to Western feudal societies because they also had trouble scaling. I love that, and I cannot have you on the pod without asking you to dive into that a little bit more.
Sure, absolutely. So before we get like into the point of the actual kind of like paradigm shift of like the internet architecture, I'd like to like highlight one like aspect, right, of our like World Wide Web, the way it's built, etc. Just like a few minutes on this, because I think it's like highly essential. Just like look at nowadays internet, and then on all these, blockchain protocols, all these DeFi tools, all the peer-to-peer technologies, regardless if they are actually like blockchain technologies or if it's like something else, right? File sharing, routing protocols, etc. So let's just look at that. You'll quickly realize that no matter how decentralized and how peer-to-peer a specific software or a specific blockchain or a specific tool actually is, really, no matter how like decentralized it claims to be, at the end of the day, it runs on 100% centralized infrastructure that's like regulated and controlled by like governmentally like regulated like organizations and institutions and companies, right? We have ISPs, global DNS providers, etc., etc. So the tech that we think is like so highly like decentralized is actually like running on a super centralized stack. I mean, that's like one very like big aspect on what's following next. Second thing is like the technology itself is outdated. It really is. Not just in terms of like physical infrastructure. So if you look at it, there's a lot of like debates going on, right? Like controversial discussions, on a governmental level with different like, network providers, telecommunication providers, etc. And we realize, okay, it's all outdated, old cables, old infrastructure, old server environments. It's pretty much like outdated. They're upgrading it, but then comes like the next big point. If you look at Bitcoin, if you look at like, even like all the other like, decentralized technologies that we have out there, file sharing, etc., they are built on technology. They are using, specific, like, let's say, programming languages, specific libraries that are just as outdated and old as the infrastructure, right? We're talking about technologies that are like from 20, 30 years ago. So the tech itself, right? If we look at Bitcoin itself as a use case, or Atom, Cosmos as a use case, right? They are using data types, cryptographic algorithms, just technologies that were not designed and conceived for blockchain technology as such. It was stuff that wasn't really designed with these use cases in mind. So I tend to say that it's kind of incompatible with each other. A truly peer-to-peer decentralized world, really looking and speaking about Web3, right? Looking at Web3, I believe our internet, our infrastructure, even the technology, the coding languages, the data types, I think it's not there. I think it's not compatible. It's not kind of mature enough to provide a solid basis for the Web3 and for a truly decentralized web. Yes, like in this like Twitter thread, and we regularly highlight, that's a logical like evolution, development of technology of the internet. It's gonna be purely peer-to-peer based, but we gotta mature. We need a new generation of computers that's going to come with a new generation of like coding languages, a new generation of low-level technology stacks. Because right now, if you look at this heavy centralized world, with the client-server architecture, then you'd realize that actually, there's so much like resources out there, but we and our internet are extremely inefficient. How much like, how much of these devices, how much computational power is idling just right now, not being used at all, right? So it's like super bad, super poor. The entire architecture is like poor, but having like a new generation, a new era of tech where, let's say, there's just native automated kind of distribution of computational power across the network to kind of balance everything out. It would just like turn the internet kind of like a modern architecture. And I think that would make us ready for a real peer-to-peer decentralized, like tech shift, kind of the next evolutionary step. And I tend even to say that who knows if this new computer architecture is not going to be the human brain. There's multiple companies working on a proper neural interfaces. So that would actually be an opportunity, for some, kind of collective minds and internet that's really next generation that actually can help our species to kind of like push things to the next level, right?
That's some absolute banana stuff. Kadan, this has been an absolute treat. I know we're getting a slight bit tight for time here. Before we get into the super fun stuff, aka the hot takes, what else is on Komodo's roadmap for the remainder of 2022 that you would like people to be aware of?
Okay, sure. So our core dev team is currently like finalizing like hardware wallet as well as kind of like HD wallet support. So what this means is that you'll essentially be able like to use your ledger, Trezor, hardware wallet devices and others to like log in, authenticate with the AtomicDEX and kind of have even less trust required to use the tech. Right now, I mean, it's open source, it's non-custodial, but users might be just like scared, or you might actually like use the trusted and secure AtomicDEX, but have an infiltrated computer with Trojans and malware, whatever. So using the hardware wallet will basically preclude an attack on a software level. It's kind of like the last level, the highest level of security. The HD wallet integration basically means that the AtomicDEX will be compatible with all the other like wallets out there in the space, right? That's like one big like addition. The team is also like working on like MetaMask, Kepler integration, so that you'll be able to use Kepler or MetaMask or other like Web3 wallets to actually connect and authenticate with the AtomicDEX. These are like some of like the bigger things. I mean, we have like full Atom compatibility rolling out. There's a few like other like roadmap items coming like towards the end of this year, early coming year, such as like WebDEX release, etc. So there's like a lot. Just stay tuned, and there's much more coming.
I love it. Kadan, let's jump in the hot take factory. What kind of hot takes do you have? I know you got a bunch. You are very well read. You love your literature, math, astrophysics, and traveling. Give me some hot takes, maybe your most underrated country or city you've ever been to, potentially something banana lands up in space regarding astrophysics, maybe something literature, math. Give me a couple of hot takes that you have.
Sure. Oh, I love that one. Good. Concerning the first one, right, like hottest countries. So I mean, I've traveled a lot of things. I mean, often you're surprised, right, new cultures, etc. One thing that's really like kind of impressed and surprised me was the journey to Colombia, to Medellin for the Cosmoverse. So the big deal here is, I mean, you kind of go to this country, you know, with this stereotype kind of expectation, you know, like it starts with the airport. We were expecting like heavy guys with like, you know, military machine gun dudes, drug dogs, K9s everywhere. But we arrived in Medellin in Colombia, and like 5 minutes or so later, we were like out. Like 5 to 10 minutes later, we were literally at the taxi spot, like the cab spot. We went like to the city. It was like ultra modern. I mean, I had like 150, 160 megabit native connection on the Wi-Fi for the hotel, and I was expecting some shitty internet. I mean, the city is on the backbone. Look, it is literally like kind of like the tech hub of Latin America now. I've talked with a few like natives, locals from there, and they've told me, look, what happened is 25 years ago, the narcos basically gave all these poor families money. All these big drug cartels literally funded the poor and told them, look, put your kids in good schools, put them to high school, make them go to college. They gotta become engineers, right? Doctors, scientists, etc. Just get them into the academic circles and so on. And now 20, 30 years later, you can literally see these people build up the country, right? I mean, it's crazy.
Wow.
And that's what I loved about Medellin. I was tight like in schedule, but you know, if I wouldn't have had like to return to Europe, I would have stayed there and spent at least a couple of months just like to get to know more. But from also tech startup perspective, man, it's just like genius, really amazing, like high quality stuff going on there. So that's something I can just like recommend everyone specific from the crypto space. You know, if you kind of like anarchistic and, you know, kind of share this, you know, view on, you know, liberalism, freedom, give that like a check. Just give it like, just hit it up, like really like worth checking it out. That's like one hot take on the travel part. On the astrophysics part, right, on universe, I mean, you know, in quite regular intervals, you know, I have like a Duncan experiments, conversation, discussions with friends, with family, with my wife. You know, one of these like key items is just us, right? If I stand in front of the mirror, I'll look at myself and just ask myself like, what the fuck is this, right? Like, what the fuck am I doing here, man? You know, sorry my wording, but I mean, our species, me as such, as a human. Also, if you look at like human history and really the part that's really, you know, properly written down, the part where we've kind of had the biggest leaps, the biggest milestones, it's such a short time frame, right? They claim a couple billion years existence, but then we look at just a couple hundred years. that actually make out the essential part of our like human history. And that kind of gives me like so many questions. So I try to question everything on always and all the time, right? And one good part here, one key takeaway is that I had like conversation with a great friend from Zurich, Switzerland. He's an academic circle, works there. He's an astrophysics, and he told me, man, we all bubble, like a Big Bang here and theory here and that. But in fact, there's like one big item that we all kind of have a common opinion about. And that's like, the Big Bang, we kind of can't say, we fight, right? We mainly agree that there's something like that has happened, but what was like prior to that, right? How would you explain a state without space and time, and that you then actually have something, get created out of it? There's multiple theories, but that's kind of like the common opinion is that we don't know, right? We do not know. So
Right.
I always try to remind myself again that we know shit. We don't even know the key aspects of our like species. We literally know nothing, right? I guess most of us like kind of like get this, okay, just like some genetic lottery, universal genetic lottery, and this is just like what came out of it, right? But again, that's a highly, highly interesting part for me, just like our existence, like the human species. And then in regards like to kind of like the genesis, the creation of like our species, of our planet, there's multiple theories, and it just fascinates me that in fact we don't know what's been before. And that's like one key takeaway I try. It's a very basic one, right? But it can eat a lot of like brain operations and brain computational power if you start thinking about it.
You blew my mind there. That's some absolutely crazy shit. Kadan, what a treat, man. I guess I do want to ask you a couple more things about Medellin there. One, is it safe? I've heard that it's a lot better than it was. It's on my bucket list. I'd love to go. Is it safe? Would you live there? Is it worth it? And two, how was Cosmoverse? The other thing I heard was that a lot of people were wearing crypto shirts around and were getting advised not to for obvious reasons. You're just a walking target. So lumping all of those three into one, how was it? Was it safe? Did you see a lot of people wearing crypto shirts when they probably shouldn't have? How was that whole experience?
So I'd say yes, safety, absolutely. Like top safe country. I mean, I know districts in the Netherlands, in Austria, in Germany, in Vienna, whatsoever, where probably much less safe and secure than like Medellin. We've been out alone, right, in the night, not even like in a group. I've had like some female colleagues and friends there on their own. I've been running around in crypto shirts like 24/7, like non-stop, literally, not just like shirts, literally socks, caps, the whole thing, right? Like badges all over. Absolutely no concern. I would live there, like immediately, really. Again, if I wouldn't have like certain responsibilities here in Europe, like family and office and everything, I would have stayed there. I might have considered like staying long term because it's just like amazing. Cosmoverse itself, the event was great. So participants, talks, panel talk, everything, it was just great. It was amazing. From not just like kind of like a visitor and exhibitioner like perspective, but also from an organizational perspective. They've done a great job. Everything was set, prepared. You've had like great, also like security level on in that regard, right? Like a lot of like securities, proper like back controls. So it just felt good. It felt like well organized. So overall, like really, really, really great.
What a treat. Wow. Shout out Medellin. Yeah, that looks absolutely incredible. Kadan, what an episode, man. Love having you on. Very pumped that I got to have you on for round 2 and looking forward to round 3. Super proud of you and the team at Komodo with the AtomicDEX and you guys being well ahead of the curve with the Cosmos ecosystem and of course, Atom. Thanks again, man. Appreciate it. Before we let you go, can you please let our listeners know where they can find you and Komodo online and on socials?
Sure, absolutely. First of all, thank you. Thank you for your time and having me again here. You can find me under 0xCA333 on Twitter, and we also have like AtomicDEX and Komodo platform on Twitter.
Lovely. I will tag you in everything as well. Mate, pleasure. Hopefully we can meet each other in person soon. And wishing you and the team all the best until the next time we speak.
Thanks, man. Thanks a lot. And hope to speak soon again. Thank you. Take care.
Folks, what an episode with Kadan Stadelmann, the CTO at Komodo and their AtomicDEX. Love to hear it. What an episode. Kadan dropped knowledge bombs left, right, and center. And this is going to be one I'm going to have to replay on a walk. so much about the Atom ecosystem, about the Cosmos ecosystem that we learned, and with how prominent this chain very well could become. This one will be a treat for the long term. Folks, if you enjoyed this one, I hope you did. Please do subscribe. It would mean the world to my team and I. Speaking to the team, love you guys. And to the listeners, love you so much. Keep on growing your bags and keep on staying healthy, wealthy, and happy. Bye for now, and we'll talk soon.